These voice AIs can take those calls entirely off your plate and integrate in like a period of very fast in an environment where any answer is available. Those that ask the best questions are going to be the winners. There's like not one model you can use to serve a community. I believe you have to do it in different touch points, different methodologies, and it gives people more things to engage with.
I think there's a lot of stuff that's getting ready to change with how tech is delivered and the actual things that it's doing in agencies. With this continued development in AI, artificial intelligence is not going anywhere. Building things and watching them grow, communities are a really cool way to satisfy that desire that you have.
Literally, this business started me buying beers for people in insurance. There's tech vendors trying to sell you everything, and it's hard to understand and see what's valuable, what's actually going to work.
But nobody's doing it. Like, that's the thing. Like, we want to complain, oh, we're not getting enough cyber business. Well, educate your agents on how to do it. Well, we don't have time to do it. Well, use technology. I mean, we can go back and forth on this all day, right?
So we find folks that have share similar interests that often have come to another event of ours in another city and say, hey, would this be something you're interested in doing in your city? And then we help them leverage their network and activate their community. And we provide the back office support to make that happen.
That's the magic really behind what we do in my community is when we were able to bridge that gap between digital and the real world, everything changed.
Don't tell an independent they have to rip something out. Like saying like you need to change your AMS, right? Like this is a very hard thing to do. How do you reduce the integration burden as low as possible? And actually AI is in some cases really, really good about this.
Our client doesn't need us to be the one to do it. They just want it done. But we have this perception that, well, I'm going to do it the way we always did it. Guess what? You're not going to scale and keep up and move to the next decade with that mentality. Like today's the day you need to make a decision to draw a line in the sand and adopt some of the stuff that's out there, or you're going to get left behind. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Power Producers Podcast, where we are refining and redefining the sales game. Today, our guest is going to talk tech with us, but not just at a very narrow scale, at a little broader scale than what we typically talk about, which I welcome, because if you're like me, you're a little bit nosy and you want to know what tech's available for the claims adjusters out there and the MGAs and the people on the carrier side, in addition to what we have on the agency side, and then also how some of that stuff might integrate with each other to make our lives easier. Today, we're going to be talking with Chris Luiz. He's the CEO of Scout InsureTech, and he is coming to us from Chagrin Falls, Ohio, not too far from the birthplace of yours truly. So, Chris, welcome to Power Producers, man. Glad to have you today.
Hey, David, thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it. Yeah, this is great. Thank you.
Absolutely. And you got to me through my good friend, Brendan Core, who has the unique ability to find all kinds of people that he feels need to be on my podcast. So he's not given me a bad recommendation yet, man. So welcome. Quickly, before we get into it, why don't you just kind of give everybody your background and overview of who you are and how you got into this space, and then from there we'll get into the nitty gritty about Scout InsureTech and exactly what you guys are doing.
Sure, David. Yeah. So for many years I've been engaged in the innovation world, I suppose. I'm a former founder several times. I've joined several additional companies as a first or second employee. I used to commercialize technology out of the U.S. Energy Lab, so physical product development. I'd go and talk to scientists about how to take something pretty weird that they created probably for weapons use and bring it to commercial appeal. So in that time, and I found myself over a number of years ending up at Progressive Insurance, where I was doing technology work there, and more recently joined an insurance technology company that sells to carriers. I left there to become CEO of Scout late last year. And I guess like the broad scope of my career is I've always been out there looking for things that are really interesting and trying to find the actual value to the community versus what we were talking about earlier, seeing through the noise. Like, what is the value and how do you use some of these things? So I'm really passionate about that. And a huge part of what Scout does, and we get into more of this as we go, is the community aspect. We're an ecosystem player. So it's not just like technology, it's people, putting people together to help understand these things and have the conversations that are beneficial for all of them.
Well, I speak that language to some degree myself because I've built a couple of communities in my day and are relatively active doing that right now. So that's good. I mean, I think a lot of people underestimate the power of that ecosystem and having a community surrounding any specific topic, really. Like, so in your world, it's tech. In mine, it's working with producers and agencies that want to move into selling more middle market commercial insurance as opposed to the main street business and the smaller commercial that, quite frankly, seems to get more commoditized with every day. There's still a value sale to be made in the middle market, but it's a different language. And a lot of the times, agencies don't understand how to speak it. And it's one thing for me to be able to coach and teach and train and all of that. But if you don't have a support structure around that, it doesn't stick. And I mean, specific to producers, that's one thing, but the other, we take it a step further. I know you said you have an event every year in June before we started recording. So do we. Ours this year's the 19th through the 23rd through my community. And the magic there is getting the spouses involved, because if you're going to take on the journey of being a producer or starting a scratch agency or just even changing the complete direction your agency's going and move into middle market, it's a rough road home, man. I mean, it's a much longer sales cycle. Close rates are different, and you really need to have support at home in addition to having a community around you professionally. And so that's really what we focus on by having our in-person event, is taking the digital and bringing it into the real, and then also making sure that we provide all of those agency owners and producers and their spouse or significant other a support structure that they can fall back on. Because the worst thing in the world that could happen to you if you're going out to build a book of business in the middle market is not have a supportive spouse at home when you get home. I mean, it's absolutely brutal, because you're putting them at risk financially and in time to some degree. You're not going to spend as much in the early years. And so for them to be able to just interact with other spouses that have been there, done that, and hear them say, hey, it's going to be okay. Here's what's going to happen next. And then when that happens, there's credibility, and then the relationship's formed. And I've just, that's the magic really behind what we do in my community, is when we were able to bridge that gap between digital and the real world, everything changed.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And there's probably some things there for me to learn from you. I certainly have relationships with some of my the people that sit around the table. The spouses, they'll come in and have dinner with us and things afterwards and are supportive. The I what really rang true to me, what you were saying there, is crossing that digital and in-person sort of divide. And we started so I do a bunch of digital stuff now, which we can talk about, but we started, literally, this business started me buying beers for people in insurance. That that the genesis of this business is, we were like, hey, why don't we get a bunch of people together and sponsor a happy hour and just do it and have conversations with them? Like, what are you interested in? What is moving you in industry? How are you seeing changes, whether that's within the company that they're at or companies externally in the technology market? And we do that now in Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati, in Detroit, in Chicago. We're standing up these private paid membership communities, and it's only paid to have really the buy-in of the people and make sure people are committed. The actual cost of any of the communities is less than a conference ticket, and everyone gets a conference ticket for being part of that community. We want to create something that's, as I believe you do too, from what you just said, that's stronger than its individual parts. And at each touch point that we create it strengthens it, right? Whether that's a smaller group conversation about how we're working in our everyday jobs and, how things can be improved, or if it's a social event built around the conference that has, whether it's, educational content or just exposure to new and interesting things. I really love doing this stuff. So community building is just really so rewarding, I believe.
Yeah, and the way that we set it up, it's every bit as experiential as it is educational. So that's by design intentionally too. I got to get people out of the office, man, and get them to decompress. And, it's one thing to go in and listen to keynotes, talk about all the things they talk about from stage and go into breakout sessions and stuff, but it's pretty hard to tailor that to everybody that's in the audience so that everybody has an equal opportunity to learn or gets equal learning from it. I think everybody has an equal opportunity, but one of the things I started doing a couple of years ago is, before we do Producers in Paradise in my events in Key West every summer, before we started doing it, originally it didn't have a ton of people, and it's grown considerably over the last several years. We would do an open mic and hand it out. Everybody introduce yourself. What's one thing you're good at? What's something you need help with? Blah, 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 blah. Now I started publishing a program guide ahead of time so that people can prepare for that. And even my sponsor partners can prepare for that. They can say, well, this person says they need help with this. My product actually solves that problem perfectly. I'll connect with them when I get there. And or, somebody's like, I really need help programming agency Zoom to get the 12-month solicitation calendar from Killing Commercial to deliver through email and track everything. And I'm having a hard time getting that set up. Well, there's somebody else who's probably got that dialed in that can meet with them. The other thing that we did intentionally is every time you go to an insurance conference, when you get out and come back home, everybody says the same thing. Man, I really wish I had more time in the bar or in the lobby or in the hallways, because that's where I had the most meaningful conversations. I flipped the traditional conference model on its head. I'm the most unconference thing you could possibly imagine. We're in shorts and flip flops in the upper floor of the Rick's complex on Duval Street in Key West. And literally we meet and have discussions. This year, almost everything's going to be an audience interactive panel discussion with members of the community and some subject matter experts sitting together. But we only do that for like 3 hours, 4 hours a day. The rest of the time is the networking, the conversations that everybody says they don't get enough of. And so we give them however much time they want to go do that in an environment that's very conducive to do that. And it's worked out really great. Nobody ever leaves my event saying, man, I really wish I just had more time to learn, or I really wish I had more time, to have conversations, because the whole event is based on you having those conversations and setting you up for success from the beginning. So it's fun, man. I mean, if you're into building a community, I mean, even if it's not community specific, if you're interested in building things and watching them grow, communities are a really cool way to satisfy that desire that you have, because you're getting the self-satisfaction of watching something that you're pouring into grow and turn into something really cool. But then you also have the humility of understanding you're really making an impact on these people that are participating and investing in being part of this. And like you, my community is a paid community, but my event every year is free. You have to pay for your airfare and your hotel room, but everything else we do costs nothing. And I mean, we do some really cool stuff, man. This year we're up to 11 now center console fishing boats that we charter and take offshore, and there's no cost for my community to do that. It's paid for by the sponsor money, and we go out and we fish all day, and then when we catch the fish, we have them filleted and we take them back, and we wrap up the entire weekend with our capstone dinner, which is a hook and cook of all the fish we caught when we went offshore on Sunday. So there's a lot of really cool things that we're doing that you probably wouldn't see in a normal insurance conference, but we're also not a normal insurance conference, and that's by design.
Oh, David, I love that. You queued me up. Great. So I'd love to tell you some ways that we also are not into what a normal insurance conference looks like, and the things that we do. And our conference is the 17th and 18th of June. So great timing. Everybody can make both of them. It's perfect.
There you go.
So we also we don't have any thought leadership stuff. We don't do it. We don't have the very senior people, like from the conferences that are more carrier centric. You have your chief strategy officer that wants to come in and talk for 40 minutes about something that may or may not have happened, and then flip his badge over and then leave. And, that's on the registration list, and people are going to meet this person, and it never happened. So we also don't have really any educational content that's explicitly educational. What we do is I've got 50 plus companies that over the course of the year, I talked to about 500 companies is what I'm on track for this year, that I'm profiling and understanding. Some of those we put up on a virtual stage. Some of them end up on the stage of the conference. None of them can pay me anything. There is no means to pay to get up on stage at my conference. We are discovering companies and putting them up there because I think that they're going to impact the insurance industry. And in the morning, we do a couple of topical showcases. So we have an MGA showcase, health, life, and benefits showcase. We have a broker and agent tech showcase. We have a claim showcase, et cetera. Those are pushed into 2.5 hours in the morning for a full day conference. And the rest of the conference is about doing business. It's about taking meetings. It is about that hallway track. It is about reconnecting with people that may be your future business partners, whether contextually it's time now to do business with them or not. It's we soft opened the bar quite early. If people are listening to this, they're going to know now. We don't announce it, but it's like, hey, we're all adults. If you want to go have a beer at 3, like, we're not going to make you wait and stand in line like you do at some of these other places.
Hey, here's a fun fact. We have open bar and pizza the entire time during our thing. Yeah, like literally, it's at like where we meet. I don't know if you've ever been to Key West or not,
Yeah,
but
fortunately.
there's a complex where there's like 6 or 8 different bars and like pizza joint, all of that. They have a top and a bottom floor. We have the whole top floor. So they've come out, the pizza joint brings like 2 dozen pizzas and spreads them out. There's a bar up there, and it's open bar the entire time. People aren't. I think the other thing is, like, because we make it readily available and it's not limited to a certain window, it's not like the normal insurance conference where you've got the guy that'll get his drink and then he shuffles 2 steps to the side while he drinks it and then gets to the back of the line and gets another one and gets another one. People aren't getting hammered. They're getting, they're drinking tropical drinks in Key West, talking about insurance. I mean, I don't know how it gets any better than that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, we're all adults, right? And that's I think that's a takeaway there. That's great that you guys do that all
This
day.
year, for the first year, I published a code of conduct that's going out in the guide, just to make sure that I'm on record saying, you're all grown adults, please act like it, in a matter of speaking.
Absolutely, yeah. That sounds like a lot of fun.
We try our best. So anyhow, I mean, that's pretty cool, man. So you're in multiple cities now. Like, is this something you're looking to try and expand and take nationally at some point? I mean, is there value in doing that, or are you trying to stay concentric to the region you're in?
That's a great question, and I guess it's a little bit of both. So what we do is we don't parachute. So let's use Chicago as an example. I'm not parachuting into Chicago for 48 hours, putting out a bunch of content and saying like, hey, Chris is here and we're doing this thing, and getting up on stage and running the thing. It's much more of a franchise model for us. So we find folks that share similar interests that often have come to another event of ours in another city and say, hey, would this be something you're interested in doing in your city? And then we help them leverage their network and activate their community. And we provide the back office support to make that happen. When they decide that, yeah, we want to do something year round and turn it into a membership community, we commit to throwing a 100 to 150 person event, a social event in their city that year. At our cost, we organize it. It is ticketed for people that are not members, but like, they don't have to worry about that. We want folks that are interested in engaging with us in that way to be super easy for them to put groups together, start meeting, enjoy, and really experience what we did, the reason that we put this business together, and then draw them back into the wider network. So I'm talking to folks pretty regularly that are like, hey, should we do this thing? And I'm like, you know what? Why don't you decide? We'll pick a date. We'll get a bunch of people in a room. We'll ask the people in your community if they're interested in doing this. And if they are, we can go from there. So we are doing that. We're going to be in, we're probably setting something up in Nashville. Like I'm going to be in Nashville for Insurance Innovators Conference in a couple of days here. And we've thrown a couple of events there. That's probably the next city that we end up with one of these groups in. But yeah, if there's folks that are interested in this, we're not exclusive to carriers or technology companies or brokerages, or we have a mix of folks that are interested in engaging and understanding others in the industry that like to hear about technology. That's all it is.
Yeah, so talk a little bit about what those events look like. I mean,
Yeah.
let's get into it. We talked ahead of time. You're doing all kinds of cool stuff, man. You're dealing with claims stuff, you're dealing with carrier stuff, you're dealing with MGA stuff, you're dealing with agent stuff. And I think that, that by definition makes it an ecosystem to some degree, because typically when you deal with any kind of technology discussion, I feel like we almost all always operate in silos, right? The agents, the agency technology, and even then, captive versus independent. Then you get into MGAs, claims, carriers, and it's wild because you would think that we want all of that stuff to talk to each other as much as it possibly can, but I don't know that we're anywhere close to having any kind of a cohesive tech platform where everything talks to each other in a easy to digest way, I should say.
Yeah, I would agree in that we don't have that. So our individual events are city-based events are 10 to 15 people sitting around a table. We run around and do introductions, much like we talked about earlier. They'll say like, this is what I do, this is what I'm interested in learning about, or this is like a problem that perhaps the group around me can help me solve. And that's pretty light. And those are intended to be social events, intended to be helpful to your understanding of the market and within your profession as well. But there's not heavily structured. Now, we also throw virtual events that all these folks can join all year round. And in the virtual events, what I'll do is I'll grab somewhere between 5 and 8 companies that I think are impacting the insurance industry. And I'll have a moderated conversation with the founders of those companies on the call. So we did an agent, and I don't know when this is gonna air, but we did an agent and broker tech showcase on Thursday the 15th, where we had a number of companies that sell directly to independents, some that work back office type of stuff for large brokerages. One really interesting one that is focused on the interaction points between MGAs and reinsurance brokers. And then later this month, we're going to have one on claims technology, same idea. But the folks that are so we have layers here. So those individual groups are about building community. And yes, you have conversations about technology, but really community is the focus. You come to the conference, you're still building those relationships, not only within your group, but across the folks that have come in from other cities and other groups, which in many cases, have very similar interests to you. They've communicated or they've aggregated the way that they have in the same way. And then virtually, we have these sessions that it's not explicitly educational, but what we are doing is asking, like, why should we pay attention to your business, to these founders? How hard is it for me to integrate your technology? How much time does it take for me to do this? And what value is this to your customer? So again, everything we do, we try and see it through the lens of helping the ecosystem understand and beneficially engage with the community, but we do that in a whole bunch of different ways. And we think that's important too. I don't think there's one particular way that there's like not one model you can use to serve a community. I believe you have to do it in different touch points, different methodologies, and it gives people more things to engage with.
Absolutely. So what's the coolest thing you're looking at right now from a tech standpoint? Like, what are you seeing? I feel like we've gone through some interesting phases over the last few years, and I feel like the snowball's gotten some momentum now with InsurTech. Like, I feel, when I first got in the industry 20 years ago, it wouldn't have surprised me to walk into an agency that didn't even have an agency management system at that point. There were still plenty of agencies that were essentially big books of business, but we're operating off of spreadsheets and everything else. I think now, for the most part, we can say people are going through and they have agency management systems. I still argue that a lot of agencies don't have CRMs that probably need them because it's a different piece of tech. But I mean, with everything that's happening with both generative and agentive, whatever the word is for the agent based AI, where they're like, it's just going to a completely different level. I think it opens it almost opens Pandora's box a little bit for some of the stuff we're going to be able to do. I think part of it has to do too with there's kind of been a changing of the old guard to the newer guard. I would classify myself as kind of newer guard in like the agency ownership world. I'm in my early 50s, but I'm a lot more technologically forward thinking than what my predecessors were. And I tell people, I feel like part of the reason for that is because a lot of my kids were born with a lot of tech already in existence. I wasn't. Like, I watched the internet happen. I watched Google blow up and Amazon blow up and all of those things. And so what I have the benefit of is is seeing that stuff happen. So it makes it easier for me to spot trends and things that I think are actually going to catch and work. That served me well as an investor in InsurTech, I can promise you, but also for just what I do inside the agency. I'm always on the forefront of trying to figure out what's the next thing that I can do. Not because I'm going out to, just buy tech to buy tech and say I have it. I'm much more apt to do that in my personal life when, I just want to have toys because I enjoy playing with them. But the agency's different. But I think there's a lot of stuff that's getting ready to change with how tech is delivered and the actual things that it's doing in agencies with this continued development in AI. Artificial intelligence is not going anywhere. And I mean, I would be as bold as to say that at this point right now, I think that the mainstream adoption of Chat GPT and some of these other learn language models, that's as big of a move in technology as the internet itself was, in my opinion. I mean, we're at where we were in the early to mid 90s, except we're moving in a completely different direction at this point. Like there's all this stuff that's happening and it's happening really quickly. I think people get confused about what they should be looking at, what they shouldn't be looking at. And I think it's a natural thing that, for the older generation that's still out there to pull back and be like, I didn't need to have any of this stuff before. Why do I need to have it now? And that mentality is what's kind of kept the industry behind a lot of other industries. So I know that I'm rambling a little bit, but I'm interested, like, what are you seeing out there? Where do you think we're going to see the major strides in tech right now? And I'm not limiting that to the agency world. What are you seeing MGAs doing, claims, carriers, any of that? I'm open to hearing about all of it.
Yeah, great. So this is exactly what we do at Scout, is help folks that are interested in understanding how to engage with the industry, cut through a lot of the noise. So what is actually impactful? Because I'm sure you get a whole bunch of emails, the carrier folks get a whole bunch of emails. There's tech vendors trying to sell you everything. And it's hard to understand and see what's valuable, what's actually going to work. You're spot on too, I think, with the AI boom and how it's similar to really, I think, the birth of personal computing and then the birth of the internet as well, and how broadly it's going to impact practically everything. Now, I'm a former data scientist and machine learning engineer, so like I was building this stuff some years ago. It's different now, but I have some context. And one of the things that most annoys me is when a founder is like, "We're doing the AI," right? Or like, "Oh, we're putting AI on." Like, you presumably are solving a niche problem exceptionally well with a piece of software. And underneath that, you're using AI, which is fine. But over time, we are going to have just much better software. And the fact that it's using everything is going to use AI. It's all going to be kind of in the background, right? We're going to have better summarization. We're going to have better understanding of whatever information it is that we pump into it. So let me start within the agent space. I think the most exciting things, and one thing that I tell companies that are trying to sell into the independent space all the time, actually captive it's almost the same, is, don't tell an independent they have to rip something out, like saying like you need to change your AMS, right? Like this is a very hard thing to do. How do you reduce the integration burden as low as possible? And actually AI is in some cases really, really good about this. So like, you can test whether this is going to work on your specific data in your specific shop immediately or nearly so. And the places that I think are the things that are doing this really in a really clever way, some plug into your inbox. So as emails are coming in, it is evaluating those emails and like optimizing opportunities within them. So what things do you need to respond to? What things are highest value? What things can be farmed out or auto-generating responses? So this is a really light thing. It's like a plugin versus some big piece of software, which I think when you mentioned the old guard, they're like, geez, they're going to come in and they're going to rip everything out. And I'm not going to be able to do business forever. And it's not going to work the right way. And I've got to hire somebody to take care of it. A lot of these things are really low touch now. And that's the part that I think I'm most excited about. I
use Superhuman, man, and it's a life change.
Yeah. They're so good. Right. And like, I use something called Fixer, which has similar functionality. And
I've heard of it. Yeah.
I love that. I really think the voice AI stuff is really exciting right now because we had those, robo operators that pressing the buttons and it could understand contextually some things. You could give it your account number, right? And it could route you to somebody. But now a lot of the common questions that particularly producers are going to get when we're having folks come in and ask for policy information or some basic information that exists within your AMS or within your CRM, these voice AIs can take those calls entirely off your plate and integrate in like a period of very fast, very like days to see whether you're going to get any value and then successively add additional tasks. So you're never going to totally offload that complex sale or a complex claim, and having the personal conversation with somebody that you need to, and you shouldn't. But when somebody's calling up for something like, I don't know, they need a certificate of insurance, they need information about whether something is covered, or they need to know whether they need additional coverage because of a change in their business. Like a lot of these things, the simple ones, can be done via these agents, and I think it's going to save so much time, and it's not going to be a high integration burden, which is also exciting.
Yeah, no, I think, it's interesting, man, because what we've done with that voice AI is we've taken the chat bot out of the digital world, and now we've put it into interacting with humans over the phone. I mean, that's essentially, in layman's terms, what's happening. And from my perspective, we're doing some cool stuff too with. So part of my community is learning management. I've got a massive learning management system. And in the past, in order for me to create that content, creating the outline, the scripting, and all of that was the easy part. It was actually sitting down, taking the time to film the video, then have the video edited, then get it uploaded, create like all of the things that need to happen to make that work. I can do it in under an hour now because I had a custom avatar created of me, my voice cloned, and now when we create the scripts and everything else, I just upload it into Synthesia and let it create the video using my avatar. So people are still getting the same quality of content, still getting the same deliverables that they can download to implement based on what they've learned, but they're getting it much quicker than they would have in the past, because it used to be, I would say, well, what do you guys want me to create next? And they would give it to me, and it might be months. Now it's hours, if even more than 1 hour. And I gave the example on a podcast, somebody else's podcast that I was on this morning, about how we did my community has a conference call every Wednesday. And one of the Wednesdays we spent about an hour talking about how to be successful in operating at trade shows as a middle market producer. And the hour wasn't enough. But what I was able to do was take the transcript of that call, pop it into Chat GPT, say, give me an outline for a 12 to 15 module learning management course that's going to go deeper in this, along with having deliverables people can use to plan and execute, and blah, 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 blah. And boom, it spits all of it out. And then we could, then the next thing was, okay, using the transcript from, that's attached, please create the scripts for each of the modules, along with suggested graphics and video clips to be used to drive home the point, blah, 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 blah. Spits it out, tells you, I would use a clip of a producer walking in from the left, going to the, like, it gives you everything you need to do. And I flip that over to my team that does my video production stuff, and they can have it done in under an hour at this point, right? So now they've created a robust learning management platform. Looks like me, sounds like me, doesn't blink like me. That's the one problem, right? But at the end of the day, like I'm getting so much valuable stuff out so much quicker than I ever would. And let's face it, man, if you can't do it when you think about it, like I am very well documented that I have adult diagnosed ADHD. So every idea I have is great, and I forget 99% of them by the time it's time for me to turn around and execute. With this, I can execute almost in real time using the tech, and it's not even that I'm getting it out quicker. In many cases, I'm actually getting it out. I have all the world's greatest ideas on 20 legal pads sitting around my desk that I'll never do anything with, because I write them down and then I don't execute on them. So, that piece of it has been really, really cool too, just to see how we can change that portion of the learning management system game that we have. And the feedback's been excellent.
That's a great story. I think I read so I can't take a responsibility for this quote, and I'm gonna mess it up a little bit, but the way that that it went is that in a world or in an environment where any answer is available, those that ask the best questions are going to be the winners. Now, when you have an LLM that can do that type of thing, it's about formulating those questions. So, David, you know what you want. You know, I want this thing. Building the question in there, prompting it effectively, and then asking, what, add the video pieces, like make suggestions for these. It is the amount of work that several motivated folks can do, well provisioned with AI tooling, is just outstanding.
Well, I think about it like this, man. I'm an MGA, right? We're going to pretend like I'm an MGA and I specialize in cyber insurance. And my good friends at Pro Writers do this. Brian and Zane, I hope you're listening because I'm giving you $1 million idea, even though they just sold. So they may not want the $1 million idea anymore because that would force them to work harder than they probably have to at this point. Cyber is something that most agents don't discuss at the level they should. A lot of it is because they don't understand it. They don't understand how to discuss some of the finer points of the coverage or whatever else. So, how cool would it be if you used the AI similar to what we use to create the learning management system, but you're doing that to create a 1 to 2 minute explainer video for each of the nuances of the typical cyber form, all the exclusions and all of that stuff. Like it would take a team maybe a week to put something like this together if they had it dialed in, so that every single time a quote was generated in their system and sent to the agency, AI could scan it for the keywords and create a hyperlink to the video explaining it, so that every custom proposal that went out not only went out with the numbers and the things in print, but for the agent who's not sure of it, it's linking back to the learning management system that they built on the back end to explain these topics and tell them how to explain them at the point of sale. Like you could do that in almost real time at this point.
Yeah, I totally can. I mean, it's amazing the world we're living in right now. Yeah, you could just stitch those things together, and there's tooling that does all of that stuff. So,
but nobody's doing it. Like, that's the thing. Like, we want to complain, oh, we're not getting enough cyber business. Well, educate your agents on how to do it. Well, we don't have time to do it. Well, use technology. I mean, we can go back and forth on this all day, right? But I mean, I just think there's so many opportunities. One of my biggest rubs is I feel like there's a lot of people that are going in because Insurtech is a buzzword. It's hot. A lot of people want to solve a problem. I think that a lot of times we're solving problems that we're creating problems to solve them in some cases, with our technology. The other thing I think that's interesting is specific to the Insurtech piece, and I don't know that this is like this in any other industry, but there's a lot of agent-led technology development coming out now where you have an agent who's like, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to figure out a way. I'm going to build a bot. I'm going to have, and it's not that they're actually going to build it, but when you have marketplaces like Fiverr and Upwork and other areas where you can go get developers. Now, listen, I want to be very clear, people. You need to be careful doing this because you don't ever know really who you're hiring to do this stuff. So you need to have a good vetting process. But if I had a really good idea for a bot today, I might not know how to build it step by step, but I guarantee you I know how to get in front of somebody who does. And the ability to source that labor is much less expensive than it was, even 3 or 4 years ago. So to see the agents that are complaining about issues they have in their agency, and maybe there's not a technological fix, but now they're saying, you know what, I can just solve this on my own. I'm going to build this. I've got a buddy of mine, Mike Fusco, out in San Diego. That dude's built like 4 or 5 bots at this point that are doing everything from commission reconciliation to basic service tasks and other things. And what it does is it allows us to spend time building the relationships and having the conversations we actually do have to have.
That's right.
Too many times we waste time and we lose efficiency because we're putting ourselves as humans into a position where, quite frankly, we don't really need to exist. our client doesn't need us to be the one to do it. They just want it done. But we have this perception that, well, I'm going to do it the way we always did it. Guess what? You're not going to scale and keep up and move to the next, next decade with that mentality. Like today's the day you need to make a decision to draw a line in the sand and adopt some of the stuff that's out there, or you're going to get left behind.
Yeah, I totally agree. Folks that adopt this technology, and I mean, it's getting easier. I mean, you mentioned that hiring developers to do this point work. It brought to mind another tool that I've used before. It's called Lynda, Lynda.ai, I believe. So it's very similar, if you're not familiar with it, to like Zapier, where you can like connect things, but there's lots of bits and pieces that you can use that leverage AI models, so LLMs. As an example, one of the things that I did with it that I thought was super cool is every time, so it plugged into my calendar. And then whenever I had a meeting with anybody who was on that meeting, it would send me a summary of who they are, what they did, a post to their LinkedIn, and then like any relevant, you could like define relevant facts. So like I have a lot of meetings, I imagine you do too. This was super helpful to me. And then it could go through your email and say, hey, the last message that you had these notes that, or these points that you talked about. And because my email also has call recordings and transcripts, it has practically all of the information that I know about a single person from my at least digital interactions with them. And Lynda was super easy to plug things together. They have all these modules that put together all kinds of stuff. So as a starting point, if somebody wanted to say, hey, like what's possible without even engaging a developer, you can get onto something like that and start stitching stuff together. And it's pretty amazing how fast you can do it.
The amount of things that we're capable of creating with click and drag today is insane.
Crazy.
It's
Nuts.
almost like they've taken all of this complicated stuff and templatized it in a way that almost like my kids, like my kids in elementary school can figure out how to do this stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it's only getting better too. You see these generalized platforms. So, and this goes back to some of the statements that I made about AI being somewhat commoditized. So like not everybody can use or create a great product and a great product experience. But when you have access to the models that will be created from OpenAI and Anthropic and these other companies and Google, whether developers can build really beautiful things over them, things that we interact with in ways like whether it's drag and drop or the click-based interfaces, or just something that's so simple. I'm really excited, I guess, generally over time in changing the way that we interact with technology. I really don't like cell phones. Like, I think that there's a whole bunch of reasons that they're obtrusive in my life, and it's a way for people to add things to my calendars. I mean, I know I jump on the phone and talk to people. I have no problem with that, but it's like something about it always on in your pocket, buzzing at you, all the apps on it. Like I'm looking forward to a world where we have a better interface to the technology available to us in real time than something like that.
Absolutely. What have we missed, man? I mean, we're coming close on time. We're not ready to wrap up yet, but I mean, what do you want to get out there that we haven't?
I mean, I think I've touched on this a couple of times, but I want your audience to know that there are ways to engage. There are many ways to engage in the technology community, not just mine. But there are ways to take advantage of some of the things that we're doing and, understand the industry, or have help understanding the industry and what might be impacting you. If anybody has a question, you can feel free to reach directly out to me or check out some of the stuff that we're putting out on LinkedIn. We profile companies all year round. So I'm going to profile something like 500. 100 of those are published out on LinkedIn a year with details. So you'd be able to see whether it's relevant to you or not and what they're doing, conversations with the founders. We do a ton of free stuff for the community because I think that's really important. And I want more people to know what we're doing and engage with it if it's valuable to them.
Good deal, man. How do they find you? Where do they go look at all this stuff? I don't know that we've even given them websites or anything like that yet.
No, that could be problematic. Yeah. So I am, my website is Scout INSUR.tech, TECH. And we're on LinkedIn. We push a lot of stuff there. The website will have information about the cities that we're operating in and links back to some of our events and things like that. I am Chris at Scout InsureTech. So you're welcome to send me an email directly. Happy to interact with anybody that's interested in the type of things that we deal with.
Outstanding. Well, listen, man, unless you have anything else you want to throw out at the last minute, we're probably at a good point to wrap up. I would encourage everybody to check out everything that Chris is doing. I mean, look, my mantra is if it's free, it's for me. If it's true, give me two. But the reality is there's so much out there that is available to us that we just don't take advantage of that costs absolutely nothing. And we really probably should. And so I would encourage, especially if you're in the areas where you're doing your live events and all of that stuff, absolutely. But we need people that are unbiased third parties to kind of review this stuff and communicate what it's really doing and sort of clear through the noise. Because right now there's a lot of noise. I said it up front. There's just so much going on, and it's not that that's necessarily a negative thing, but it's a confusing thing. And I think that when you have confusion around technology, specifically in an industry that's historically been a little bit more apprehensive to adapt and adopt, then it makes it even more difficult for people to adapt and adopt because they just pull back completely because they're confused, they're scared, they don't know what they're getting into. We can't afford for that to happen. We need to keep pushing forward because there are a lot of things that, a lot of problems that technology can solve for us if we will simply allow it to do that. The other thing is we got to make sure that we're messaging things right with our teams and everything else, because I feel like a lot of times when you look to bring a new tech in, your team is the first one that's going to freak about it because they're worried it's going to replace them. It's going to do their job. You're not going to need them anymore. And that's never the case. Technology should never replace your team. It should enhance what they do and make them more efficient at their jobs. And so, communication's a big key. And I would imagine some of the messaging that you guys have around what you do addresses that as well. But when's your next big live event? I know you have the one in June. Is that it? And if so, where is it? And how can people become part of it?
Yeah, so the June event is the largest event that we do. It's in Columbus, Ohio. So if you're in the area, please drop me a note. It's the 17th and 18th of June. Like I mentioned before, it's all about learning or experiencing somebody a whole bunch of startups in one place. So this is the founders coming and talking to you about why they're passionate for building what they do, and then understanding whether those are the folks that you want to do business with or not. No need to do that. But if you'd like to explore, that's a great place to do it. We also do what we call mixers on site in a bunch of places. So on Monday, I have a mixer. This is probably going to be too soon, but in Nashville around the Insurance Innovators Conference. So if there is an insurance conference happening, likely somebody on my team is going to be there, and likely we're going to try and throw some sort of event. Insurance innovation conference, because there are so many that I am not at all of them. I feel like I'm at all of them sometimes, but I am not.
Good. Do you go to Insurtech Connect out in Vegas?
Yeah, I'll be at ITC this year for sure. Yeah.
Okay, cool deal. I spoke at the First Agents event last year, and I will likely be going back into that conference again this year because it's in Vegas in the fall, and it'll give me a chance to get away for a couple of days with my wife. So I always look forward to those opportunities. Well, listen, man, I really appreciate you taking time to come on today. Everybody, I encourage you to check everything out that we talked about. And if you're local to any of this stuff, you only have yourself to blame if you don't take advantage of it. So we'll catch you guys next time. See ya.
Thanks, David.